Hello, I'm Amanda Charles, and I am going to present this in auditory, just in case my stuff isn't visible to some people. I try to make it accessible for everybody, but I'm not always the best at that. Therefore, this is just a reflection of some of the online education that I've done the last two past week. I've done two different webinars that were posted on a class. So I wanted to share that information with you today. The webinars I attended, one was Accelerating Policy Change and the Power of Local and State Solution. And that was on Thursday, February 27th, 2025 at 2 p.m. And it was presented by the Change Lab. And then number two was Enchant Employers with an e-portfolio. And this was done through the IUPU I school, and it was presented on Friday, February 28th, 2025 at 12 p.m. And it was presented by the Eat Portfolio Studio blah, blah, through the Writing Center. Um, my introduction here. I'm just going to read for the most part, but I'm going to try to put in some explanation and detail as I talk. So just bear with me. The purpose for this presentation is to self-reflect on the intentions and experiences of attending online educational webinars. The guidelines for attending these live online webinars is to explore and learn about the importance of digital citizenship and connecting with peers in an online live experience. I think it's synchronous. I always get asynchronous and synchronous mixed up, but synchronous is when you do it one on one in the screen, and asynchronous is when you can write emails and expect something back. So you're not talking live, you're talking um, through the terms of when you need to respond. My experiences since being put into the role of stay at home mom, I have a daughter that's autistic, and that's put me into the stay at home mom role. And so I put unexpectedly, I have to come up with different ways to keep my mind active because I myself am ADHD and stimulated in times of boredom and extreme anxiety and stress. So I often utilize an application called Eventbrite, which this project has kind of thrown me back into wanting to learn more and to do more with that. So I've kind of put myself down the information hole again. I have an issue with once I start digging for information, I can't stop. And sometimes when I'm giving so many options to do things, it makes it very difficult to kind of sort out and organize the information that I need. This provided many online learning opportunities through the option of free webinars. Some of these events provided free certification in CEUs. One of my favorites that I've attended was the year before last. I do believe it was 2023, and it was in April. In California, they have a program for the homeless and domestic violence. So some of the areas cover just homelessness, while other areas might bring in women and children of domestic violence situations. And they do a webinar each year in class that provides CEUs and certification in domestic violence training. And so they provided an all day, it was like a 2 to 3 day um, conference that just showed and taught about the importance of domestic violence. Some of it was specialized to the state and the city that it was being promoted in, and then others were not so much. So I have a printed out certificate that she sent me. It was like the most informative information that I think that I've ever gotten from a webinar online that was free. The purpose of the attended webinars, the first webinar, which was attended on Thursday, was social work relevant, and it promoted the importance of advocacy and understanding of policies. This webinar gave me information to utilize in different assignments for classes. The second webinar attended was promotion and education on how to utilize the Wix online program to create a stunning e-portfolio. This webinar built my self-confidence and my abilities and talents to create a personal brand. When I shared my website with them, they said it was absolutely beautiful. And she said the colors and all that stuff and the branding was all about who my targeted audience was. And I like to be myself and authentic, and authentically me is pink and loud and obnoxious. All those different things tie into me. I'm also very loud and I like to be heard. So I want my representation of self and self branding to portray that. So therefore, it has kind of a childish, bright color to it. Project overview. Both webinars serve different purposes as mentioned before, but they also provided information in two different formats. So the first webinar attended was interactive in that it provided polls and the option to add questions into the chat. It was more formal and was set on a scheduled format. There was an introduction and an overview of the material. The speakers followed order and spoke, and then there was a conclusion. The presenters were relevant to the topic of learning and provided lots of information. One of the speakers was from North Carolina, and the other one was from Oklahoma. And the first speaker was male, and he does stuff to promote affordable housing. And one of the things that they've done within their state that hasn't been done before was they have designed a housing division that follows and goes above and beyond the HUD criteria for housing. Therefore, it's something different and unique because usually you have to get either a HUD approved house or a apartment. It never usually flows into context of a housing addition. So that was very exciting to learn about. He spoke about how they had to push these policies through and learn and adjust to the people. And his biggest advice, if I understood it right, was to get out to the people and do the footwork. And the reason why he said this is because a lot of people that are in this area where they are actually working are not within criteria for the housing. So they have to step out of their reach to grab people and get them informed about what's out there. Therefore, that was just really interesting to me. And then the second one was healthcare. She was teaching and putting out efforts for education and educating people within the area on policy and why it's important for people to be aware of the policy. The second webinar attended was also interactive in that it provided opportunities for others to actually speak and engage in the conversation. The presenter was more informal. She offered examples of ideal works and then led the process utilizing slides and screen share. The neatest addition to this presentation was that the presenter shared a template Wix site that the attendees could work on during the presentation to provide hands-on learning. This is something that I thought was interesting because I'd never seen it done like this before. So I didn't even know things like this existed, that you can make templates for other people to just practice on. So I still have that, and I think that's very beneficial. It's helped me understand what I can and can't do with my Wix website. And the questions that I had were more for advanced practice, the practitioner, versus the whole goal for that was for people who didn't know what they were doing. And I felt like I was an important asset to the class because I was able to share the information that I knew and ask the questions that I needed to know. So this webinar was more, so this is the accelerating policy change, the power of local and state solution. And it was presented. We already talked about that. This webinar was more in a presentation form with different representatives and speakers scheduled in a sequenced formatting. The webinar spoke about the importance of advocacy and education in the policy area. There was the host, two speakers discussing the benefits and processes for advocacy and presentation, and then two speakers at the end were sharing their present initiatives and were presented with questions provided by the host. The male speaker discussed the housing in North Carolina, as I just spoke about, and the others shared the initiative to educate individuals on healthcare policy. So, kind of review of what it was again. It feels like a lot of the same information over and over again. One of the things that we wanted to discuss on here was about digital citizenship, and how the feelings and the emotions and just kind of how the online presence kind of affected how we got the information. In this case, it was a little less personable and you didn't really get to share from your side of things. So it was more of a asynchronous, like you're going to get the information later. But the synchronous part was that they did provide polls that you could um, share, and then you could ask questions, which when I registered for this, I asked a question, and I do believe it was actually utilized in the presentation. So if you see, there's some nice graphics here for the beginning, and it states their name and the titles. This is the agenda that we were going to discuss, and here's the speaker up here at the top. Here's the moderators and presenters that were at the beginning of the program. I remember the last two more because I think of their initiatives and efforts, as to where this was also more educational based. So it was more of a just rote kind of thinking as they were putting this forward. It was more like they were reading from a uh, script, versus it for the other two, it was more informal and they came up with the stuff on the fly. So introducing, so it just shows here. I just want to make sure that I had the screenshots in here. They're kind of small, but they do present the information that was given during the presentation. So I'm just going to kind of show these. This was the polls that we did, and then those are the questions for the polls, and then I showed how I participated in it. These are a little bit more of the educational pieces, and then this here was put into the chat as we went through the presentation to give more information. Then we have more teachings here, and the 10th Amendment, and this is more about advocacy and what your abilities are and what the restrictions and regulations are, so that you don't overstep your bounds. It's kind of like a more of a tutorial about how to advocate. Then here's more pictures of the polls that were done throughout there. And I apologize if there's any on there twice. It's just kind of hard when you're trying to put it together and be able to see. They also explained and gave definitions of preemption and different topics that aligned with the topic of advocacy. Then we have the different roles and alignments, and this was all just kind of how they taught the information. And they most of them with this, they didn't really have, it was more from an informative stance. So it wasn't like it was really entertaining and it got you all excited to learn. It was just more of, here's the information, this is what you need to know type thing. There wasn't really a lot of extreme emotion or laughter to keep it, it was more of an educational process. But it was also trying to keep with the time, because this one, the slot time was from 1 o'clock or wait, 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So it was on an hour um, budget of time. So they were trying to stick within the time. And as you can see here in the middle, it's at 2:24, and we're learning about this. And these went really quick, so I didn't catch as much probably from that as well. When things are kind of hustled through, I don't pick it up. I sometimes have to rewatch it. So then this was the end of it right here. And then this was the panel discussion that was provided. And these were the people I talked about earlier because it was more impactful. As you know, they were a little bit, you notice she's got more of a presence about her and talking and smiling. He's also kind of the same way, a little bit more charismatic because they don't really have a script to follow. They're just more so there to add upon the information that was already given. So for the second one, Chant Employers with an e-Portfolio. This webinar was a great resource for learning the different tools and hidden techniques for building a professional portfolio. The part I enjoyed most about the webinar was the ability to participate in the educational aspect of things. When I shared my personal Wix website page, it was the best practice for learning. So when we began this, she showed us examples of um, successful portfolios. She gave us information. It was a little bit more educational, but she was informal and her presence was more relaxed and laid back. It didn't feel hustled and it didn't feel like it was over the top structured, if that makes sense. It's more informal, obviously. I've used that word a lot, but hers was more laid back. And if she made a mistake, she made a mistake. So, and she was kind of interactive in asking people opinions and thoughts, so that was cool. And then she gave information with examples. I think examples are always nice because then you kind of get an idea of what you want to do and how you want to do it when you go into these projects. Next, we have the same kind of stuff. We have the different opportunities in education about how to build your portfolio and what employers are really looking for and the basics and kind of like little rule of thumb things to follow so that you do your best. I have a hard time because I'm an over informer. I like the information, and sometimes I have too much information in front of me. So I want to use all of it, and I kind of go overboard. And overboard is a little bit of an understatement because I love to share everything that I know. I know I'm not a know it all, I just love information. It gave some resources for tools and upcoming webinars that are coming on to kind of do. And then once she got done with this process, they also shared some information in the webinar chats, which looks like I might have mismatched some of this information because this looks like it came from the other one. So I'll have to change that. I probably put the slide in the wrong spot. But anyways, right here, this was kind of the ending of all the information and the examples that, and she provided a lot of links. So I apologize for the last screen just getting kind of snuck in there from the last presentation. I'll change that when I post it. Second of all, here we have a little bit more. So when she started talking about this, then I kind of wanted to see if I could push the envelope and present my um, overall website. So here's my website right here, and we went through it, and she thought it was a good layout, and that made me feel really good because I was thinking it was a chaotic mess, but apparently I have the right idea, and I'm conscious and know like the skills I need to put it forth. My whole goal here is to brand myself eventually with Wonderfully Weird. I want people to get a real perspective on life as it is and not what it's not. A lot of times, I think in this conversation, we have like the I Love Lucy type situations where we still hide a lot of the truths. And people also, in hiding truths, it builds a lot of shame in people. And I'm trying to reach rethink the way I do things with people. I've always been non-filter and blunt with everything. So I want to build a brand where I can be honest and open and authentically me, but also let people know it's okay to be yourself and you don't have to be ashamed of who you are. So then I just wanted to put in a few of these, which these little things here are just different ways and different tools that she showed as she did the screen share. And she shared how to do a lot of the different things in order to make a great portfolio. So that was the ending. I didn't use every single piece of pictures. I tried to hold back a little bit, but I learned that some people are clueless and have no understanding of policies and regulations, which surprises me. But there are individuals out in the world who put out content to educate others and better understanding of this. I learned that I understand technology better than I initially believed, and that I need to grow my self confidence more. I have a very low self esteem at times, and I am hold myself to extremely high standards. So uh, I don't always think that I can do what I can do, and I can. I mean, it sounds kind of like a weird statement, but I hold myself to very high expectations of I want to know it right now, but it's a timed process that I have to learn. It just takes a little bit more effort and time, and I need to be a little bit more patient and have a little bit more faith in myself. So the conclusion is what is truly amazing about participating in online webinars, trainings, and meetings is the ability to be within the comfort zone of home or any place that is of comfort. The ability to be visible or invisible to the speaker and other attendees, and sometimes have a recording of the meeting afterwards to catch any missed details. Now, that's one of my favorite things when I went through my little educational thing when I was out of school and I didn't have anything else to keep me busy. I liked getting the copies of things so that I could go back later and do it. But I kind of overwhelmed and overloaded my storage. So I have to go back and kind of clean that out. Thank you for participating with me and following along in my slideshow. Hopefully, this helps make it accessible to more people. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.